Our first story tonight, our first conversation on Global Mirror. The peace talks have concluded and Europe has pledged unity as well as financial aid to Ukraine. UK will be contributing with two different packages. The first, about 2.7 billion euros through proceeds from frozen Russian funds. The second is about 1.9 billion euros for the purchase of 5,000 anti-aircraft defense missiles. The European Union's contribution is awaited, and the 27-member bloc will be announcing it on Thursday this week. It has also formed a coalition of the willing to secure a peace agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Let me quickly take you through what has happened in the past few days. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was warmly welcomed, hugged and supported by European leaders at the London summit, a day after his verbal spat with Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Take a look at what had happened.
Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning.
Know.
You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
you
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion.
You voted
we gave
for
you
your
military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
you invited me
if you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. Let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having cards. Right now, you don't. You're playing cards. You're playing cards. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country, that's backed you far more than a lot of people said they should have.
Now, after this rather unprecedented instance at the Oval Office, Zelensky has not only posted messages of gratitude, but he's released a video as well, thanking America and Europe.
Звісно, ми усвідомлюємо важливість Америки, і ми вдячні за всю підтримку, яку ми отримали від Сполучених Штатів Америки. Не було такого дня, що ми не відчували цієї вдячності, бо це вдячність за збереження нашої незалежності. Наша стійкість в Україні, вона базується на тому, що роблять заради нас і заради власної безпеки наші партнери. Саме мир нам потрібен, а не вічна війна.
Is in big trouble.
Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, posting, thank you and gratitude messages since he's come back from Washington, D.C. But that, ladies and gentlemen, on your screens is that particular verbal spat that happened at the Oval Office when there was supposed to be a mineral deal, that crucial mineral deal between the United States of America and Ukraine, regarding the peace deal that is still underway between Ukraine and other countries. Whether or not it's still on the table with America, we'll have to wait and watch how Donald Trump really takes this forward after this verbal spat.
Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not winning. You're not winning this. You have a damn good chance of coming out okay because of us.
Mr. President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
you haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet,
you
and
haven't
not
been
only
alone.
in this cabinet.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment, and you men are brave, but they had to use our military.
What about
if you didn't have our military equipment,
if you didn't have our
military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
Maybe
new.
less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. Let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards. But without us, you don't have any cards. But you're either going to make a deal or we're out. And if we're out, you'll fight it out. I don't think it's going to be pretty, but you'll fight it out. But you don't have the cards. But once we sign that deal, you're in a much better position. But you're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. You're not in a good position. You don't have the cards right now. With us, you start having
not
cards.
playing cards.
But right now, you don't.
I'm
Yeah,
very
you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
what do you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What do you
World
think
War
about?
III. And
You-
what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country,
I'm
that's
with all
backed you
respect to your
far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Now, with many saying that peace is much farther now, there are several concerns and questions that remain. With Trump getting upset with President Zelensky, can the Ukraine sustain itself in the war without American support? Is Ukraine willing to move towards a ceasefire to start with? How does Ukraine plan to strategize its path given Trump's closeness with Putin? To answer all of these questions, joining me exclusively on Global Mirror is a man who works closely with President Zelensky. He's in fact the advisor to Ukraine's Ministry of Strategic Industries, Mr. Yuri Saak. Mr. Yuri Saak, good evening, namaskar. Welcome to Global Mirror. My first question to you, I know these are tough times for your country. It's going through challenging times, but what we saw at the Oval Office between Donald Trump and President Zelensky was extremely unprecedented. What is Ukraine thinking right now? What is it that it is strategizing now as far as its path forward is concerned?
Good evening, and thank you for having me. Of course, what happened in the Oval Office was very unfortunate, to put it mildly, because both sides, Ukraine and the US, we were hoping on that day to sign a deal that would be the beginning of the negotiating process that we all want to result in ending the war. Now, I have to stress that, at this moment and before and going forward, both Ukraine and our partners, and in particular our strategic partner, the United States of America, we want to end the war. Now, we need to understand, though, that Ukraine has a very bad history of ceasefire agreements with Russia. We have been betrayed by Russia every time we signed a ceasefire agreement, and there were 25 of them in the last 10 years, every time Russia violated it. So this is why for us, for us to sign a sign a ceasefire agreement, to announce a ceasefire without any security guarantees, it's the same as a suicidal mission. Because I'll tell you this, just a few hours ago, Russia attacked Ukrainian cities. Russia attacked a training ground where they killed almost 39 Ukrainian young soldiers and injured 90 more. Every night, Ukraine is the target of drone attacks, which Russia gets from Iran. So, on the Russian side, we don't see any willing or intention to end the war.
Saak,
And I would like to
Mr.
finally
Saak, do you
say
not
this,
think-
one more thing. I cannot... Go ahead.
Mr. Saak, do you not
Yes,
think that
please.
this time perhaps the ceasefire would be different, considering the fact that Donald Trump is the US president now and the kind of proximity that he shares with Vladimir Putin?
We hope that the negotiating process will continue. We will, on our side, approach it pragmatically. We will put all the emotions aside, and we will continue. But look, we are talking about ending the war that began in 2014. So that is 11 years ago. In that period, there were different US presidents, and we know that Russia can wait. Donald Trump, according to the US Constitution, will be the president of the United States for another 4 years. But after that, if we don't achieve some security guarantees, there will be no guarantee that Russia will not attack Ukraine again. So we need to really, really think about how we put in place enduring and lasting peace, not just any kind of ceasefire that will allow Russia to reinvade again in the future.
Mr. Saak, so what would Ukraine's demands be? Yes, security guarantees is one of your top priorities, but the fact of the matter is that the Trump administration has time and again reiterated that Ukraine should forget about its pre-2014 territories, it should forget about NATO membership, and just move towards peace. Are you willing to negotiate with that? Are you willing to accept the kind of conditions that America has put forth?
We have made it clear that we understand that in this negotiating process at this stage, it will probably not be possible or feasible to talk about the return of Ukrainian territory to the level of 2014. And we understand that. But of course, at the same time, we have said and made it very clear that we will never agree to giving this territory to Russia forever, because this was an illegal annexation. This was an act of aggression, which is against international law. So, but we can wait. We are also patient. And if we cannot achieve it now, we will postpone it. But we will not compromise long term on our territorial sovereignty, independence, and our freedom. That's a very simple equation.
Okay, and are you willing to let go the NATO membership as well? Because that is something that this entire war was reasoned out for, that this, at least the Russian side said that the Ukraine should not be joining NATO.
The Russian side has used this as a lie and a pretext for going to war. In fact, at the time when the first missiles targeted Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, nobody was talking about any NATO expansion, and Ukraine was not about to join NATO. So that's a lie which Russia just used as a pretext for its unprovoked aggression. Now, after we have been attacked and after our cities have been bombed and our people have been killed, we are confident that long term, going forward, there is no other meaningful security guarantee for Ukraine than full-fledged membership in NATO. But we understand that at the moment it is not possible to speak about it, and we are okay with that. We can wait.
Okay, and therefore is President Zelensky willing to return to the Oval Office, sit with the Trump administration, and sign that mineral deal that was supposed to have been signed last week?
In a way, it is very difficult to explain why that deal wasn't actually signed, because that deal was approved by both sides. That deal was discussed by the working groups of both presidents. So in some strange way, it is not possible to explain what actually happened. But of course, we have said it since that meeting at the Oval Office. Our president said that he is willing to, restart the negotiating process, to come back to the negotiating table, and we are ready to sign the deal that we have agreed. So we just now have to be pragmatic and find a way to do it.
Do you think, Mr. Saak, that the kind of personal rapport that Donald Trump and President Zelensky have shared in the past led to the kind of unprecedented scene that we saw at the Oval Office, that there was a preconceived notion on the American side? Because in the past, we remember that Donald Trump had also asked President Zelensky to probe the Biden administration for what he said was money laundering in the Russia-Ukraine war.
Look, this is the stuff of conspiracy theories and pure journalism. I'm not belonging to any of those camps. So with due respect, I would like you to understand that I cannot and will not speak about these issues. Past is past. We need to look forward. Both presidents, both the Ukrainian president and Donald Trump, they both want to end the war. And we need to, look at the things that unite us and don't look at the things that divide us. And as long as we're capable of doing that, we need to maintain the transatlantic union and community, because, look, we understand that the support of the United States of America is vital for Ukraine, right? If, God forbid, America decides to pull out, it will be very difficult for Ukraine to continue to defend itself. And this is a fact recognized by both our leader as well as, like, for example, European leaders. So we need to find a way to, fix what happened on Friday and just go forward and make sure that we sign this framework deal on critical minerals, and then we sign other deals that will work towards securing us in terms of, for example, protecting our skies, in terms of providing us with air defense systems, in terms of deploying some troops. They don't have to be American troops. I mean, and that's fine by the White House. They could be European troops. They could be Turkish troops. I mean, we can discuss. But it is important for us to just keep in mind that our unity, the unity of the transatlantic coalition of free nations, our unity is our strength. If we lose our unity, we will be weak.
You know, you mentioned European troops, and that's what was my next question as well, Mr. Saak. The fact that Donald Trump has been pushing for a bigger and more European role in this war to aid Ukraine. As far as European Union's contribution is concerned, Mr. Saak, how do you see that? Are you willing to accept that America's role reduces and Europe's role increases?
We will have to see at what level the American involvement will remain. We, of course, hope that we will continue to have bipartisan support at the Congress. We hope that we will continue to have the support of President Donald Trump going forward. But, of course, Europe, is also very aware of the fact that they have to increase their defense spending. They have to ramp up their defense industry production because, look, Russia is at the moment Russia alone is producing 3 times more ammunition than the whole of Europe taken together. So there are challenges in the future that we will have to be prepared for. And that's why it is important for Europe to pretty much step up their efforts, even though we are very grateful to European countries because overall, since the beginning of this large-scale invasion, European countries have provided to Ukraine just as much help in the monetary equivalent as the US.
Okay, and therefore my question to you, as far as this upcoming summit in Brussels is concerned, Mr. Saak, where European Union is expected to announce its aid to Ukraine, what are Ukraine's expectations now from the EU?
Well, our largest expectation is we want the process of Ukraine's accession to the European Union be expedited, and we are getting good signals from our partners that this will be considered. Of course, in Europe at the moment, there are some countries some leaders of some countries who are behaving in a way that is very difficult for us to understand, and they oppose Ukraine's integration with the European Union. They must have their own reasons for that, and we strongly disagree with those. But of course, we expect the European Union to stand firmly with Ukraine. Many European leaders have already reaffirmed their commitment to supporting Ukraine because, of course, European countries understand very well that Russia will not stop in Ukraine. If it is allowed, if Russia is rewarded for its aggression, it will continue attacking other European countries. This is why there is a very great level and degree of unity among European countries when it comes to supporting Ukraine.
Okay. My last question to you, Mr. Saak, after Donald Trump called for elections in Ukraine, there was growing chorus among the Trump administration, members of his cabinet also saying that President Zelensky should resign. How is the Ukraine viewing this? Is President Zelensky willing to resign for peace in the country?
We are a democratic country, and we have a democratically elected president who at the moment enjoys the support of the vast majority of the Ukrainian people. In fact, we're not just any democratic country. We are a democratic country which is right now paying the highest price for our democracy and freedom. We are fighting against tyranny, which wants to destroy our freedom. So, we never allow ourselves to interfere in the electoral process of other countries, and it is not possible for other countries to interfere with our constitution, with our electoral process. We, at the moment, cannot have elections because our constitution prohibits holding elections during the time of war, and which is very logical because if you hold elections now that millions of Ukrainians are living as refugees abroad, hundreds of thousands are on the front lines, it is not possible to hold elections that will be representative. it is not possible to hold elections now that will allow all Ukrainians to cast their vote. So these will be not legitimate elections. But we assure you that we are a democratic country. We are fighting for our democracy now. And when the time comes, we will hold elections and the best candidate will win. But no other country will tell us when to change our leader.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Mr. Yuri Saak, thank you very much for speaking with us on Global Mirror and sharing your perspective and Ukraine's perspective. Thank you very much.